Hello, good morning everyone. My name's Steve Ledzian. I'm a technical director with FireEye, and I'm very honored to be speaking with you today here at FireEye Day, Korea. What I'd like to talk about this morning is, through my work in Asia, I speak with many customers, and I see at a very high level what their security beliefs are. And what I'd like to talk to you about this morning is your own security beliefs. What are the things at a very high level do you believe about security, and how do those beliefs drive your security program? The first belief is breaches are inevitable, right? As we've named the theme of this year's event. Do you believe it? Many organizations, I can tell you, are still thinking the way they were thinking in 1980 or 1990. Today, breaches are inevitable. And it's important to think that and to factor it in to your security program. And we'll see more in just a little bit. What do most companies believe? Most companies that I talk to, they're focused on prevention. What they want is a silver bullet, something that can provide 100% security. In fact, sometimes when I talk to customers, they ask, does FireEye give any assurance that if an attack is successful through FireEye equipment, that there will be some sort of action given from FireEye to that company? In fact, we're saying the opposite. We're saying breaches are inevitable. A motivated attacker, a well-funded attacker, will always find a way into the network. And if you're only focused on prevention, if you're only thinking, what will I do to keep them out, and you're not thinking, what will I do when they get in, then you're going to have a problem. So what is it that you believe? Do you believe you can build or buy a security system which can give you 100% protection? Is it possible? Let's look at JP Morgan. JP Morgan was breached. After that breach, they released in their shareholder report a section on cybersecurity. And in that shareholder report, they had said that they had spent over $250 million trying to prevent breaches. So I ask you, what is your security budget? How close is it to $250 million a year? And what they say is, we believe not every battle will be won. What does that mean? It means they believe that breaches are inevitable. They know these breaches will happen again. Prevention is important. We should, of course, try and prevent the breaches, of course. But we also have to ask, what happens when prevention fails? How will we respond to that? This is another CEO. This is a CEO from Bank of America. And this is a short video I'd like to play for you. And he's talking about his budget going into 2015 for cybersecurity.
You know, it's not something I go to bed every night, feeling comfortable that that group has all the money because they never have to ask, and that we have great professionals.
So you don't have budget constraints in terms...
The only place in the company that doesn't have a budget constraint is that area.
Really? Really?
Because how would I know how to assess? Why would I take my judgment and say, you could do this cheaper?
Is this the first time that's ever been the case?
Oh, I think since I remember. I've never had within the 15, 20 years I've been around budgets, I've never had a place where you just said, you need to spend what you need to spend to keep us safe. Then we'll go worry about everything else. And they're judicious in how they spend it, but the reality is you've got to be willing to do what it takes at this point until we figure this all out.
That's a wow from me.
It is a bit of a wow. What have your guys told you they're going to need to spend in 2015?
Well, we've publicly said we spend in excess of 400, and it's going north of that.
Going north. Brian,
that's
why is
millions,
it
not dollars?
Pardon me?
It's millions, not dollars.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. The only place in their company where they don't have a limit on budget is cybersecurity. And this CEO, in 20 years, has never seen that before. Right? 2015 is very different than just 10, 15 years ago in security. This problem is a very pervasive problem, and the impact on business is a very severe impact. Let me play another video. This is Dave DeWalt. He's the CEO of FireEye, and he was interviewed on a 60 Minutes news program, and I'd like to play this video for you as well.
Every company is vulnerable.
Dave DeWalt is CEO of FireEye, a cybersecurity company that gets hired to keep hackers from getting into a company's network or getting them out after there's been a breach.
Even the strongest banks in the world, banks like JP Morgan, retailers like Home Depot, retailers like Target, can't spend enough money or hire enough people to solve this problem.
Cybersecurity is a misnomer. There is no cybersecurity, it sounds like you're saying.
This isn't a lack of effort. Most of the large companies are growing their security spend, yet 97%, literally 97% of all companies are getting breached. So there's a gap here.
97%.
97%. In fact,
That's outrageous.
it is outrageous. It's pretty amazing.
97% of companies are breached. Breaches are inevitable. Where does that number come from? 97%. How did FireEye make this number? Well, we didn't make the number. Where that number comes from is through our engagement with prospect customers. What we do is we take FireEye technology and we put it behind all of the other existing technology, behind the firewall, behind the IPS, behind web security gateways, proxies. At the last stage only is FireEye. So FireEye only sees the traffic that everyone else has to say is clean, right? Only if everyone else says it's clean, only then does FireEye see it. And when we do that with over 1,000 prospect customers around the world, what we see is 97% of the time, attacks are coming through those traditional defenses. So you may agree. You may say breaches are inevitable, and that would be good. But in fact, there are other security companies that are still thinking in the 1980s. They're still thinking on prevention. So I will say, for example, security vendor A, right, is who we will refer to. And here they're saying, in many ways, security has experienced a regression or moving backwards in a mindset focused on prevention based on detection. Prevention is the key. Again, prevention is important, but it's not the key. It's only part of the story. If breaches are inevitable, you need to ask what will happen when prevention fails. And as I work with prospect customers, what I see is they'll take FireEye and they'll take another set of vendors and they'll do a BMT. They'll compare features, they'll compare performance, but they don't think about the very high-level idea. The high-level idea is this company building a security platform with the idea that breaches are inevitable, or is this company building a security platform with the idea of prevention only? Doesn't it make more sense to look at that high-level idea to align to a vendor before going down to very low-level technical feature comparison? So it's important what you believe. It's important to ask yourself if you believe that breaches are inevitable so that you can align yourself and your company to the right vendor. Well, who else is saying that breaches are inevitable? There's many. Our CEO said it on 60 Minutes. E&Y has said it. ISSA, Forrester, there's many analysts, there's many security organizations. If you read any security journals, the idea, the concept that breaches are inevitable is becoming a more popular idea. And even Gartner has said that prevention is futile in 2020. Right? So we need to focus on more than just prevention. Yet, many security companies still grasp at this idea because it is what companies like you want to hear. You want to hear there's an easy fix. You want to hear there's a silver bullet. You want to hear that one box can protect you 100%. And companies will use that. They'll say things like relying on incident response teams can be futile. Automated technology is better suited. There is no automated technology that can prevent you from attacks 100%. And this problem's not easy. It's a very difficult problem to solve. It requires technology, yes, but it also requires expertise and it requires intelligence. So, which of the ideas seems to be winning? Is it the idea that breaches are inevitable, or is it the idea that we can prevent these problems? Well, 2014 is being called the year of the breach. And you're going to start seeing in security circles quotes like this more and more frequently. No matter how good an organization's security strategy is, attackers will always find a way into the victim network. Breaches are inevitable. How long can these other vendors hold on to the idea that prevention is a workable solution when we see the string of high-profile breaches of very large companies, Sony, Target, Home Depot, Anthem, happening so close together? What happens if you choose the wrong idea? What happens if you believe that prevention is enough and you only need to think about prevention? What happens then? Well, what we see is that companies who are only focused on prevention fall into this category. When they are breached, they don't know it because they're only thinking about prevention. They're not asking, what happens when my prevention fails? And so they're not looking for that failure. And because they're not looking for that failure, when the attacker does get in, he stays in for a very long time. In fact, on average, the attacker stays in 205 days. From the time of infection to the time the attacker is discovered is 205 days because people believe that prevention is enough, not because breaches are inevitable. After 205 days in the network, it's very hard to pull the attacker out of the network. It takes about a month. And most of the time, 69% of the time, that discovery after 205 days, it's not done by the company themselves. That discovery is done by an outside organization, maybe through a security assessment or through other means. But even after 205 days, the company doesn't recognize for themselves that they are breached. The average cost of a breach, $3.5 million, according to the Ponemon Institute. What happens if you believe the other way? What happens if you believe that breaches are inevitable? Then you can start to ask, what happens when my prevention fails? Am I analyzing and am I responding to attackers in my network when prevention fails? And that is a more mature way to think about security than just prevention alone. At FireEye, to put this in a tangible sense, FireEye has many security offerings to help you to think this way. We have an offering called Incident Response Retainer. The Incident Response Retainer is a way to prepare yourself for when you're breached. If you're ever breached and you need help from an incident responder like Mandiant, as Kevin was talking this morning, that help is a service. Service requires contracts, and contracts require lawyers, and lawyers take time. And the one thing you don't have when you're breached is time. Incident Response Retainer is a way to address this. establish the contract now. It's no cost and it's no obligation. But if you are breached, your mandiant can come to help you immediately without the need for lawyers. We also have something called a response readiness assessment. A response readiness assessment is a service that helps you explore, if you were breached tomorrow, would you be ready for it? Would your IT team, your security team, your PR team be ready to handle a breach? We've done it many times. We can help you to get ready for it because breaches are inevitable. We have technology. Of course we have prevention technology, but we also have forensics technology for when prevention fails and you need to investigate what happened. We have solutions for that as well. And we have something called FireEye as a service. FireEye as a service is the expertise portion. If you don't have your own security expertise, we can provide it to you through FireEye as a service. Now we'll talk a little bit more about maturing your security program in a few slides. But when prevention does fail, you go into incident response and you respond to that attacker being in your network. And this is a note from a Silicon Valley newspaper. FireEye is making its name as the cyber attack first responder. This is a quote from an analyst. In any high-profile cyber breach, FireEye is usually first in the door. Why is that? Because we've believed this for a long time. It's how we operate. And when companies are breached, they know who to come to. So that's the first idea. The second idea that I want to share with you is that today, the problem about cyber is a human problem. It's the hacker. The problem is not the malware. The core problem is the human. And many companies that I talk to, when they build their security program, they're building their security program thinking about malware. They're not building their security program thinking about the hacker. Now in 2015, you're going to hear every security vendor tell you that their threat intelligence is the best. Right? Threat intelligence is very important. But when you hear threat intelligence, think of what that means. In many cases, threat intelligence means intelligence about malware. It's about exploit kits, spam, vulnerabilities, malvertising. It's about malware-based threats. Well, that's the problem. The problem is not the malware. The problem is the attacker. And what you want is threat intelligence on the attacker, not just threat intelligence on malware. The problem you're facing is a who, not a what. The problem is a human. There's a human, a human on an interactive session attacking you, not just automated malware. We know they're well-funded, often state-sponsored, and they're very persistent. If you kick them out, they'll try and return. So let me draw an analogy for you. Imagine that you've come home from work and you see that someone has thrown a brick through the window in your home. And you open your door and you walk in, and on your carpet is the brick, the broken glass, and you see muddy footprints going upstairs into your home. You call the police, and the police come, they take the brick, they throw it outside, and they tell you, now you're safe. Is it ridiculous? Yes, right? The brick's not the problem. That is how most security companies work with incidents. They sit at their terminal, they get an alert, the alert points them to a machine that has malware, they go to that machine, they remove the malware, and then they wait for the next alert. The malware is just like the brick. For the attacker, the malware is just how they get inside. Once they're inside, they use other tools. They use non-malware-based tools like RDP, you heard this morning. Or they grab passwords. They have many things they can do. Malware is only one. And if you're only focused on malware, you're only focused on a very small set of the problem. But today I can tell you most security operations work that way. Their goal in their thinking is I have to remove all the malware, and they don't think about anything else. That's a problem in 2015. We also need to think about threat intelligence, right? So imagine two boxers. One boxer is trained in fighting. The second boxer is also trained in fighting. But this second boxer, he's studied the first boxer. He's watched over 100 of the first boxer's fights. He knows when that boxer gets tired. He knows his strengths and his weaknesses. Which boxer do you want to bet on? You want to bet on the second boxer, right? Because he knows his enemy, and he's prepared for his enemy. Cybersecurity should be the same. When you heard Kevin this morning talking about threat actors and threat intelligence, that's what this is about. It's about knowing your enemy and preparing for your enemy. It's a human. The problem is the human, not the malware. And if you change your thinking to that way, you can better defend yourself. We have many of these reports. Kevin talked about APT1 this morning, PLA Unit 61398. But we have other attack groups that we study as well. APT28 is a Russian attack cybercrime group. FIN4 is a group attacking financial institutions. And these are all free reports you can download and you can get a feel. Now these are only 4, but as Kevin said, we have tracking over 500 threat groups today, and we have intelligence on those threat groups. We can use that intelligence to protect your companies. Speaking about threat intelligence, again, just very recently, this is as of March 30th, 2013, SANS organization awarded a number of different security categories. For the category of advanced threat detection, FireEye was the winner. For the category of threat intelligence, FireEye was the winner. Right? Our thinking is very different than other companies, security companies. Number 3, it takes more than technology to stop a determined threat actor. Many of you may remember this. Garry Kasparov against Deep Blue. Who won that game? There were a number of games. But I can tell you this. The computer did not win every time. Garry was able to beat the computer a number of times. Now, if we can't build a computer to beat a human in chess, what makes you think we can build an appliance to beat a cyber attacker automatically? Technology is part of what's needed, but it's only part. Technology alone cannot stop a human attacker. For that, we also need expertise. We need human defenders, and we need those human defenders to be equipped with threat intelligence. So those are the things I'd like you to think about. Breaches are inevitable. Today, the problem is the hacker, the human, not the malware. It takes more than technology to stop an advanced attack. Detection and prevention are good. We want to do those, but we also have to ask, what happens when prevention fails? Excuse me. We need to be able to analyze and respond to breaches when prevention fails, and to do that requires expertise. If you are focused only on prevention and you're not looking for the breaches, then you're contributing to that 205 days lag of detection time. Okay, let me move to a second part of this presentation. I was lucky enough to present at FireEye Day Korea about a year ago. The audience was a little bit smaller. I'm very happy to see that the attendance has grown. But I think, why are you here? Why has the attendance grown? I think the many high-profile breaches we have seen in the news are causing you to ask yourself, what happens if I'm next? What happens if my company is breached? It's a business problem. So ask yourself, imagine tomorrow that your company has been breached and you've been summoned to talk to the board of directors and answer their questions. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for that today? Are you prepared for it? Well, some of you may say yes. And for those of you that say yes, I'll ask you, what is the board of directors going to ask you? What is their first question? What is the first thing they will ask? They're going to want to know what was taken from their company. Today we have all of our important assets are digital assets. And they're going to want to know what was taken and what is the business impact. So think to your IT infrastructure. Think to your security infrastructure. What have you purchased that answers this question? What solution will answer this question? There's none, right? There's no technology that's going to answer the question, what did the attacker steal? And that's why you see when companies are breached, they stand up in front of the news and they say, we're still investigating. We don't know. We don't have the answers yet. Because there's no solution to quickly answer that question. So the current state of your security program is such that the most important question asked by the board of directors is one that cannot be answered today. Is that a business problem for you? I would think yes. Well, there is a way to answer it. It takes time, and it requires evolving your security program. FireEye has a solution called PX. And this PX acts as a forensics recorder on the network. Now, your log files don't have the answers to these questions. Your log files are like a phone bill. Phone bill tells you the number you called from, the number you called to, the time you called, and maybe how long the call lasted. But it doesn't tell you what was said in the call. And your log files are the same. They may tell you which machine talked to which machine, but they won't tell you what traffic was sent out of your organization. Well, PX is a solution that does that through forensics recording. It can help you to understand what was stolen from you. But there's a challenge. PX requires a very mature security program. You can think of it as step number 10, and most companies are only on step number 2. This is what the cyber maturity curve looks like. In order to answer that question from the board, what was stolen from our company, you need to be here. You need network forensics capability. But the reality is, most companies are here. The most advanced thing they have in their network is maybe a next generation firewall or maybe a SIM. So how do we get from here to where we want to be? Well, we can't just jump. We have to come up the curve and all of the pieces of the curve. For example, before you can answer what was stolen from me, you first need to know that you're breached. Right? We need advanced threat detection. Most companies don't realize it for 205 days because they are relying on signature-based technology. Again, 1980s thinking, signature-based technology. FireEye's detection is not signature-based. We use MVX, virtual machines, to detect unknown threats, something signatures can't do. This advanced threat detection helps us first spot when we're breached. And we need to be able to do that before we can answer what was stolen from us. So with these detection technologies, we've come up the first step of the curve. We now have advanced threat detection. This is, again, what you saw Sands awarding FireEye for being the strongest vendor in. Now we've spotted the problem. Once we've spotted the problem, what do we need to do? We need to respond to it. Okay, the attacker is in the network. Now we can't just go clean the malware, because that would be like going and removing the brick. We need to respond. What do most companies do for a response? Well, again, they're doing it the wrong way. They power down the machine. Maybe they re-image the system. They reinstall the operating system. Maybe they try and remove the malware. Maybe they send the malware to the antivirus company. And then what do they do after these? They wait for the next alert. They're only focused on malware, not the attacker. These are the wrong answers. So what are the right answers? The right answers are to investigate that infected machine. Did the attacker grab passwords? Because that's often what they do. As soon as they infect a machine and get on it, they will grab passwords and then use those passwords to spread to other machines. And if I'm only removing malware, I only see the first machine the attacker touches, not the rest of the scope of the attack. Did the attacker move to higher value targets? And is this a nuisance malware? Is it a small problem? Or is it a determined threat actor? Now, once I'm doing the right things, I want to be able to do those things in a more mature way. We're going to take those right answers and we're going to mature them. We need to be able to do these investigations very quickly. That means when I see an infected machine, I can't walk to that person's desk, or maybe they're in a branch office, or maybe they're in an office in another city, or maybe they're not in an office at all. Maybe they're at home, or in an airport, or in a coffee shop. I need to be able to do these investigations from my desk, remotely. And I need to be able to do them whether or not the victim machine is on the corporate network or off of the corporate network. And I want to be able to contain those problems. FireEye has a technology for that. It's called HX. It's an endpoint forensics technology that is meant to help you to understand what happened with the attack if you get hit with a breach, which is inevitable. So now we've come up further on the security curve, and we have some incident response team that's capable of quickly and maturely responding to the threats that we've detected through advanced threat detection. And now we're ready to do the second part of forensics, which is not endpoint forensics, but network forensics. Right? We're more sophisticated about our response. We're investigating what actually happened, not just cleaning malware. Everything doesn't automatically get mapped to re-imaging a machine. We're understanding more about the attack and what the attacker did once they were inside the network. Well, with our network forensics, we can then go and see what traffic has left the organization. But there's still room for improvement. We can still do more. And that is to know your enemy. Once you're able to detect, and once you have response capability, then think of the boxers. We want to use threat intelligence to understand and anticipate and hunt for these threat actors inside of our network. FireEye has an offering called ATI, or Advanced Threat Intelligence, that can help you to do that. So now we've come a long way. We've come up through the top of that maturity curve. Right? So ask yourself honestly today, where are you on this curve? Where is your level of capability? And ask yourself, where do you want to be? Now you're ready for the board's questions. And these are the things the board will ask. They're going to want to know how long has the attacker been in the network. They're going to want to know what is the scope of the breach. How deep into the network has the attacker penetrated? They're going to want to know who is it that's attacking us and why. What is their motivation? What is the data? What is the digital asset that they are after? The most important question, what was stolen from us? How does it affect our business? How do we go about removing these attackers? Because why? Removing the malware does not remove the attacker. So many times I hear customers say, does FireEye clean malware? It's the wrong question. We want to remove the attacker, not the malware. How can we prevent a recurrence of this attack in the future? Right? So these are the business questions that the board is going to ask, and this is where you want to be, where you want to mature your security program to be capable of answering questions like these. Now there is a challenge. Some companies will build this themselves. Many companies do. They buy the technology, they train the forensics experts, and those forensics experts work in-house. They get advanced threat intelligence from FireEye so they can know their enemy, and they have all three necessary components. They have the technology, they have the intelligence, and they have the expertise. But some companies can't do that. Some companies can't find the expertise that's needed, or they can't hire enough. Or they have other challenges. They can't operate a security operations center 24/7 by 365. So there's maybe some hurdles to doing this. For companies that cannot do it themselves and have hurdles, we have an offering called FireEye as a service. FireEye as a service instantly puts you at the top of that cyber maturity curve. It includes the FireEye technology that I talked about, the PX technology, the HX technology, ATI, all of the detection and prevention technologies, NX and EX. All of the FireEye technology is there. It includes FireEye expertise. So you don't need to build a team of cyber warriors. FireEye has that expertise stationed in security operations centers across the globe. Those security operations centers operate 24/7 by 365. And they are the cyber expertise to protect your company, leveraging the technology and leveraging the intelligence. This service can be procured through OpEx or CapEx. And if it is a very severe attack and you are breached, you can very quickly move to incident response. Because what this service really is it's an incident response service before a breach. It's the same thing. It's the same technology, the same intelligence, the same expertise. If you knew that you were going to be attacked, would you do something different? Why wait for the attack? Why not do that something different now? That's FireEye as a service. With that, I'd like to say thank you very much. Kamsahamnida.